Hi, welcome to Bicycling Magazine's coverage of the 2014 Amgen Tour of California. We're here for the race radio analysis segments. I'm Joe Lindsay, joined as always by the one and only Frankie Andreo. And Frankie, the 2014 TOC is the 9th edition of the race. That's going to tie it with the Coors Classic for the most consecutive races in a stage race on U.S. soil. So it's a fairly significant achievement.
It's a good track record.
Absolutely, good track record. Good course this year, really well balanced course kind of front to back. Got 2 summit finishes and 1 individual time trial. It seems like really, as Brad Wiggins said at the press conference today, we're going to see very quickly who's in this race and who's not.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's top heavy, meaning at the start heavy. I mean, you have, the Sacramento stage would be for the sprinters, but then you have the time trial and then mountaintop finish for Diablo. But I actually like having the time trial on the second day because that is going to kind of sort out the GC, and then guys are going to be able to attack on Mount Diablo. But with the time trial early on, the guys don't have to ride the whole race saving themselves and trying to conserve as much energy for the time trial like later on. They get it out of the way and then they can race flat out. And so whoever is going to have the lead after Mount Diablo is going to have a pretty good chance of winning the GC, partly because last year, if you look at the top 10, I think 7 of the top 10 guys ended up being in the top 10 at the end of the race.
Yeah, right.
So,
emerged on that Diablo stage.
But you're going to have aggressive racing.
Right, absolutely. And I agree. I like the fact that the time trial is early. It forces guys out, forces them to kind of show their hand a little bit. So you're going to know even by the end of the time trial, all the guys in this race are going to know exactly who they have to mark. They're going to know who has good form and who doesn't. I think that makes for a much more competitive race when we do get to that Diablo stage on stage 3.
Yeah, it should be good. And obviously there's the stages for the sprinters and then the stages for which are going for the overall. And for me, I think Wiggins is here, and then there's a bunch of crumbling parts that a bunch of the other riders are at just below that. I think Wiggins is pretty much the hands-down favorite, but there are some other GC guys we have to talk about.
There are. And Wiggins said at the press conference, I think the most notable quote for me from the press conference was when Brad said that he was basically at the same weight as when he won the 2012 Tour de France. So, he was 9th at Paris-Roubaix, then he rode kind of quietly but reasonably well.
You can get skinny, that doesn't mean you're fit.
But that's the thing though, is he's at the same weight and
you're skinny?
Are you
fit?
Skinny, but no, I'm not fit.
All right then.
So.
Anybody can get skinny.
Anybody can get skinny. The thing is, I think Wiggins is skinny and he's fit. And they're really targeting this race. They've got 21st Century Fox as a sponsor, and this race, even though it's not necessarily a big race on the international calendar, means a lot to that team. So I think they're really well motivated. After that, the GC seems like there's not that many guys.
They have a good team. You have Peter Stetina, you have Azevedo, who's on the podium last year, and if you look at the last 4 years. Only 2 guys are actually racing in this race, which is Danielson and Azevedo. Horner's injured, so he's out.
Right.
Michael Rogers is over at the Giro.
TJ Van Garderen's taken some time off.
And TJ decided to skip this. So, Peter Stetina, Azevedo, I think...
Lawrence Tendam could go well here.
Yep, Lawrence
potentially.
So there's a few...
There's a few guys.
There's a few guys that are going to be able to shake it up. And that's where Diablo and the mountaintop finish are really going to come into play, because you're going to see some aggressive riding from them. But really, the most exciting part, besides the GC, are the sprint stages.
Absolutely.
It's stacked here.
The sprinter stage, in years past, we've seen Peter Sagan pretty much dominate the sprint stages here. Nobody else has been able to come close. I think this year, that changes. And it changes just based on the guys that you have here. You've got Mark Cavendish, you've got John Degenkolb, you've got Matt Goss, and then you've got a couple of good domestic guys with Fred Rodriguez and Ryan Anderson. So I think there's going to be...
And JJ Hayedo.
And JJ Hayedo. There's going to be a lot of really motivated guys here. I think, Cav, Omega really brought a team of hitters here. They got a crazy lead out.
Crazy lead out.
So I think people are really going to be queuing off of them, but that opens up opportunities for guys like Degenkolb or Rodriguez. Rodriguez is really good at hopping from wheel to wheel and kind of freelancing things and that kind of stuff. So I think we're going to see some really exciting sprint finishes.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of these stages don't actually come down to a sprint finish. If the Big Sur, you have a lot of wind. Tomorrow going to Diablo, or the next day when we have to go to Diablo, a lot of wind. The wind could pick up and play a big role. And of course, finally, when we get to Thousand Oaks, that final circuit is tough.
It's not easy.
Not easy at all. And in 2010, I remember Horner was in the break. He would have won the race, but Levi had the jersey and actually ended up chasing down his teammate to prevent Horner from winning the race. And it's a tough hill. It's a very fast technical descent. And so if the time trial in Diablo keeps things relatively close, that last final stage will be critical.
Yeah, especially after we do have that one other mountaintop finish as well on stage 6 to Mountain High, and that's steeper than Diablo. It's a little bit more sustained, so that will definitely create some gaps. But yeah, going into the final stage, if the time gaps are close, you can expect a really active race, basically the whole 8 stages all the way to Thousand Oaks.
But overall, I think a beautiful, a nicely designed course with the time trial early on. I like that, the 2 mountaintop finishes, lots of stages for the sprinters, which keeps kind of the excitement up. It should be a great race.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us. We'll be here all week with race radio analysis after every stage.